Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and thanks for watching. Well, in this program, we're going to have an update on cyber charter schools, see where they're going and what they've been doing, and then Pete DeCoursey from Capitolwire, one of the state's leading journalists, gives us a little update on politics in the state. All that and more following these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. We're going to take a quick look here at Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School. It will allow my guests to get into more details. We're going to look at cyber charter schools and how they've developed over the last couple of years. And I'm going to point to him right now and be rude. I'm pointing at Nick Trombetta. He's the CEO of the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School and a guest on this program on numerous occasions. And next to him and across from me is State House member Jim Marshall. He represents the 14th District in good old Beaver County. You can cheer for Beaver County.
Right.
Yeah.
We cheer.
I understand. Look, it's a great place. Nick, let's start. I want to start with you. You haven't been on for a while, but you come on in the past, and we talked a little bit about Pennsylvania cyber schools. Give us an update on the status for our viewers of first of all, what is a cyber school, and then give us a quick update.
Cyber schools are basically computer-generated schools that deliver instruction via the internet and other electronic means. Been around now for about 11 years, going into our 12th year in the state. Pennsylvania is noted as having probably the best program nationally.
Right. And
we have approximately in cyber charter schools upwards of 25,000 students in 11 different schools. I was mentioned to you earlier when we started the program, coming on the program, we had about 500 students. This year, PA Cyber alone has 8,100 students.
Now, given the state of the economy, do you expect that you'll see that your enrollments will go up? Is there a cost differential for people, or isn't that so much an issue with, let's say, a typical family who's looking at an education?
Right. Well, since we are charter schools, we are public schools, and there aren't any tuition or fees associated with it. So
it's not an issue.
However, there are questions about the economy and parents having to go back to work because all the cyber schools require at least one adult home with the student. And so in homes that will require both parents to work or seeking work
may have a problem.
May have an issue. Yeah.
Jim, let me talk with you about now. This particular cyber school is physically located within your legislative district, correct?
Yes, right in Midland Borough.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about what is the relationship that you have and that the residents have in your district to this to the cyber charter school.
Well, PA Cyber is a great asset to Beaver County. It's nice to have them there, not only to give our students options, but also they're a tremendous employer. I think they have maybe close to 1,000 employees this year, and
they pay taxes, right?
Yes.
I knew you were going to come to that soon enough. Go ahead.
Well, really, though, just gives our kids an advantage going into higher education, and we're glad to have them.
Now, let's talk a little bit about you're regulated by the state government, right?
Correct.
So you follow the rules and regulations of all other charter schools, right?
Well, yeah, and then some.
And then some.
Cyber charter schools have an additional set of rules because of our unique status, and we answer directly to the Department of Education. Unlike the other charter schools that answer directly to a school district, we are chartered by the Secretary of Education, the Department of Education.
Right. And then you're under their, I'll put it this way, quote, direction, end quote. I mean, within the confines of the law and the regulations, they administer those regulations. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're direct supervision and guidance, and we get both. And so there's a high degree of accountability at that level.
Yeah.
And
Jim, let me ask you a question. You're not in the Education Committee, are you?
No, sir.
I didn't think you were. That's okay. There's been a lot of debate in this state. They had the costing out study, and the legislature increased education funding considerably. It's supposed to go up more sharply. Do you happen to know, is there any money in that? Is that costing us study? Does that just all go to general basic education, or does that end up in Nick's program as well?
Well, the costing out study is interesting. The funds have been distributed in, I think, an uneven way.
Yeah.
I think that the best part about having PA Cyber there is competition with the other public schools, and
Right.
it's really going to increase the education for the students in the area.
Right. Okay, let's go to a break. When we come back, I want to ask you a couple more questions about the sort of the unanticipated. Every time you create something, there are all sorts of unanticipated consequences. We'll be back with this and more after these commercial messages.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by PAConstructionJobs.com. For more information about rewarding careers in the highway construction industry, visit PAConstructionJobs.com. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back. We're talking with Nick Trombetta. He's the CEO of the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, and Jim Marshall. He's State House member from the 14th District, which is located in Beaver County in western Pennsylvania. Nick, let's pick up on what Jim was talking about. You're a public school, additional funds go, you would be beneficiary of those?
Yeah, basically the formula that's used to determine what charter schools receive. We receive about 80%, 75 to 80% of what public schools would receive, traditional public schools.
I can do that. So as their income, their revenues would go up from property taxes and or state appropriations, your share of that would go up as well. Is that your point?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That would be correct.
All right, Jim, I want to come back to this, but I want to change subjects just for a minute. Every legislator I know has, quote, the pet projects. That's not a criticism. You're entitled to it. In fact, that's what you do. You've primarily, since you've been in the legislature, you're in your second term?
Yes.
Have focused your attention on seniors, and particularly a particular group of seniors in some need of help. Just give our viewers a quick overview of what you have done in that regard.
Well, not only seniors, but those that have disabilities that are on have Social Security income, and they may be in personal care home.
Right.
I had a constituent come to me actually in church one day, and he said, "Do you know anything about the personal needs assistance funding?" And I said, "Well, no, I really don't. I need to look into that." And we worked together to draft legislation to increase the personal needs assistance funding for those individuals. Unfortunately, the bill was buried in committee, but it did receive a lot of support from co-sponsors, and a number of people came up to the Capitol, and it really brought attention to that. So fortunately, the Department of Public Welfare did increase that funding just this year in January.
Well, that's going to get, I mean, I think that whole subject matter, particularly with seniors, although, you know, you appropriately point out there are other folks involved, that given, you know, the changes in Medicaid that we see, and probably Medicare at the national level over the next couple of years, I think that's a huge topic. That's 75 million of us moving through the portals of 65, you know, and Medicare and Social Security. I think we're going to see a lot more attention to sort of those sorts of problems that seem to fall in, you know, between the gaps. Not a lot of people are thinking about them.
Right, and really somebody has to be an advocate for those that don't have one currently.
All right, cool.
Glad to help.
All right, Nick, let's, before I let you go, I want to talk a little bit about these. Every program that I've ever seen and every new initiative has unanticipated consequences. Sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad, right?
No, absolutely.
What do you get out of your leadership over the cyber school movement in this state?
Yeah, we're completing our 9th year in operation in the state, and we're the state's largest cyber charter school and state's largest charter school. And some of the unanticipated consequences, I try to think about the positive, would be the exponential growth.
Right.
The creation of new jobs, the need for research and development, the reaction of public schools on the positive side. They've adopted some of the programs, created their own.
Right.
have rethought what they're all about.
And you're happy about that, right?
Well, I think, yeah, I'm really pleased with the fact of many superintendents who have decided, look, we need to get into this. I would tell you today that all 500 school districts, 501 school districts, probably have some program, some idea of the cyber program. We got into this, that didn't happen. Yeah. And they also, something else, a good unanticipated consequence is that many superintendents now view kids in a different way. They view them as valuable customers that they could lose to guys like me if they don't meet their needs.
Talking about competition.
Well, I think Jim talked about competition.
Right. Yeah. Do you, have many of your colleagues talked to you about that when they find out that you're, you know, that this operation is within your school district? Have you gotten inquiries from legislators, or are they pretty much tending to their own business?
Well, surprisingly not. I mean, I can't speak for the caucus. I mean, if you wanted to have those type of conversations, it would be with Sam Smith. Everything I deal with are for the people I represent back in Beaver County. And PA Cyber is an asset to us, and I would be glad to talk to anybody about that. But, you know, as far as, you know, in caucus, we really, I can't say have had a lot of discussions about it.
Okay. All right. Thanks for coming on. All right, Pete DeCoursey is going to come in. We're going to talk, wouldn't be PA Newsmakers if we did do politics. We got one of the state's leading journalists who covers this, who lives it, coming on next. Stay with us.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Joining me as often as the case is Pete DeCoursey. He's the bureau chief with Capitolwire. He's one of the state's leading reporters and columnists, let me add. All right, Peter, big elections coming up, 2010. Governor, Rendell can't run again. Specter always runs again.
For U.S. Senate.
For U.S. Senate. The campaigns have already begun. The commercials aren't up. Let's take a look at Governor.
Absolutely.
Give us a highlight.
On Monday night, while everybody in the world except me was down in Washington or watching Washington, in Pennsylvania we had row office inaugurations for the Attorney General, Tom Corbett, the Auditor General, Jack Wagner, and the Treasurer, Rob McCord.
All right, that's January 20, big day. Go ahead.
But here's what happens on January 19. Tom Corbett, who is right now the leading candidate for governor in 2010 among Republicans, has a bunch of friends in the night before, raises $250,000 at his friends party with Democrats like David L. Cohen of Comcast, who's going to be a big fundraiser for the next Democratic candidate for governor, Peter Angelos, a trial lawyer who...
They're all at this fundraiser.
They're all giving $5,000 to $10,000 checks at this fundraiser to Tom Corbett.
Is this called covering both sides of the party?
It's covering both sides, but also the list was a who's who of Republicans. It was everybody you want to have. It was Bob Asher, Charlie Kopp.
Okay, help us out, help our viewers out. These are Republican big leaders.
The biggest Southeastern fundraisers and law firm guys. And
so let me ask you this question.
So Corbett starts out in real good shape, but there's a cloud on the horizon because that very weekend, Pat Toomey, who ran against Specter and darn near beat him in 2004, is now telling chairmen out in the Southwest and his people, if I run, it will not be for senator in 2010 against Specter. If I run, I will run for governor. And if Toomey runs, he starts out with a big base of loyalist conservatives, like 30–35%, which makes it vital for Corbett to cement his front-runner status because there are two other very good candidates, Patrick Meehan, the former U.S. attorney from Southeast, and Jim Gerlach, the congressman from Chester County. And in a four-way race, the guy with the 35–40% conservative base does very well.
So you think, hold on a minute, so let me review
That's just among Republicans.
So we got Tom Corbett, the Attorney General,
front runner.
You'd say front runner, raised big money, all sorts of different folks there, power players.
And in 2008.
That is fundraiser.
Right. And in 2008, when everything was going bad for Republicans, he ran hundreds of thousands of votes ahead of John McCain and hundreds of thousands.
He won by 6 percentage points in the state, Tom Corbett re-election.
While John McCain was losing by 9.
Yeah, that's right. Well, 10. Barack Obama won the state by 10. We can argue over that. But at any rate, so what you're suggesting is Republican primary for governor at this point, a lot of drama and a lot of intrigue.
And will Pat Toomey get in, and what happens if he does? And will the Eastern GOP bosses then have to push out Gerlach and Meehan in order to keep Corbett viable against Toomey? I mean, there's a lot of intrigue, there's a lot of pushing, because
and a lot of things we just don't know yet, right, that have to play out yet, do you think?
Right, but right now the conservative wing of the party, that 1/3 of the primary electorate that is most unhappy with the party, that most is unhappy with moderates, that most is unhappy with Arnold Specter, can dream of having their dream ticket, which would be Pat Toomey for governor, who hates all forms of increased government spending and control, and Peg Luksic,
we'll get
the
to
former
that in the next session.
Candidate for governor for Senate.
Okay, we'll get to that in the next part. All right, on the Democratic side, big field, Dan Honorato, you know.
The Allegheny County executive, the mayor of Allegheny County.
Would you say he's, at the moment, the front runner?
Yes, in money and in context. He is being invited more. He's getting sit-downs all over the state with the people you want to sit down with a year before you run.
But a businessman named Tom Wolf from York County is the first guy to actually form a committee, a formal committee to run. He is...
well, he had to form a committee. Remember, Honorato can use his old committee for quite a while.
I understand, but the first one to put a gubernatorial committee together.
Right, and to hire first-rate staff. He's got Bob Casey's 2006 campaign manager, and he's got an extremely good public relations and spokesman guy named Sean Smith, who was Obama's man in Pennsylvania in the primary and in the general. And he's
a wealthy supply company, right? Very wealthy.
He sold that, but yes, he's got plenty of money. He's given over $800,000 to Democratic candidates the last 2 cycles. So he's also been like Tom Ridge back before Tom Ridge ran for governor, and that he's made a lot of friends the 2 cycles before he's going to run.
Right, and he's pretty popular and generally well thought of, correct? I mean, he has a very good
to the extent he is, the people who know him.
The people who know him.
But you have to be a pretty much a state insider or a political insider or someone from York County.
We got to go pay some bills. This is inside stuff. It doesn't
Don't forget Tom Knox and Jack Wagner.
We'll get to those guys in a minute. Inside, here we are. It's not inside, but it's almost inside. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Penn Future, where we believe that every environmental victory grows the economy, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program with Pete DeCoursey from Capitolwire. We're chatting, we're going inside, deep inside the intricacies of the governor's race and the Senate race. We're going to get to the Senate race as well. Dan Honorato, County Executive, Allegheny County, front runner. You've got Jack Wagner, the Auditor General out there.
Who might run for Senate also, or governor. He's one of those Toomey guys who, has to check
And he's
a box.
a big vote getter, right? He's one of the top vote getters in the history of the state.
Yep.
I don't know what it is, 5 or 6 or something like that.
He runs very well because the best way to run as a Democrat in this state is to be very popular in the West, because the East is trending more and more Democratic, and there's more default Democratic votes in the East than there is anywhere else. So if you can win the West as Wagner does, you can hardly lose.
Right. But Wagner and Honorato are both from the West. If they stay in the race, that creates an interesting.
They even ran for Senate against each other years ago, and Wagner beat him.
That's true. That's true. We've got Don Cunningham from Lehigh Valley, very highly respected guy, worked for Rendell for a while.
Former mayor of Bethlehem.
Former mayor of Bethlehem, well respected.
Tom Knox, a rich guy from Philadelphia, finished second in the 2007 mayoral primary, and there might be more.
Bob
Mello.
I want to go to the Senate.
Yep.
But let me ask you this. You've covered PA politics for a long time. Both parties, very impressive fields, yes or no?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, very impressive.
Very good fields. I mean, these are very strong fields. Both parties really want to get this. Republicans feel like if they can't win the governorship in 2010, if they go 12, 16 years without a governor, this state becomes New Jersey. It becomes a blue state
permanently.
Officially.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about the U.S. Senate.
And Democrats, of course, want to make that happen.
Arlen Specter running for his 6th term, health problems, age, has been challenged from his conservative base by Pat Toomey, only lost by 7,000 votes, I think, 2 percentage points. Peg Luxick, who ran for governor not once but several times, is maybe going to run against him.
Is looking at it, and again, now that we're hearing that Toomey is really leaning more towards governor, that would clear the field for Luxick. And Luxick is a person who, in the Republican primary, with Obama having denuded the Republican Party in the Southeast of more than 100,000 moderate Republicans.
Explain that in better. People who were
registered
Republicans
switched to be Democrats to vote in the Obama-Clinton primary and have not come back in the Republican Party. Now, Arlen Specter is going to spend a lot of money to try to bring them back. But that's hard.
That's going to be real hard to do.
That's going to be hard to do. And you have Luxick. And so Specter's going to have to make an electability argument that, sure, she could beat me in the primary, but she's toast in the general. And that's an argument, as you know, that some older, sophisticated voters buy.
Okay.
It's hard to sell that to
we only have a minute left, but here's the part. I want the parting word from you. Chris Matthews, out of the U.S. Senate race, will not run as a Democrat. Is that good or bad for Arlen Specter?
Bad. I think Specter would beat Matthews pretty easily.
He would have beaten him. You think one of these other Democrats that are prominently mentioned,
that doesn't have 20 years of
tapes, MSNBC tapes.
The old joke was, that opponent would have written a book. The new one is, that my opponent would have hosted a talk show for 20 years.
All right, we'll have you back. We'll get into the Senate race on the Democratic side more in detail. Thanks, as always. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition. And as always, stay well.